Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today. Today we have Intro to PowerPoint Part 1, which Rebecca will be teaching. My name is Susan Winkler. I am our technology librarian here at the Champaign Public Library, and thanks for joining us today. Before I introduce Rebecca, I do want to go over a couple of housekeeping details about Zoom and how we run these webinars. At the bottom of your screen, you should see a little comment bubble icon. That is for chat. We do ask that you post your questions in chat. And I will pose them to Rebecca and then she'll answer them. If you want us to demo something a second time or anything like that, please just put it in the chat and we'll do that. There is also a raise hand button. We ask that if you'd like to ask your question out loud, because I know sometimes it can be cumbersome and take a long time to type out if you have a more complicated question. We do ask that you use the raise hand button and then we will unmute you so that you can ask your question out loud. You also will notice down at the bottom that there is a place for, let's see, live transcriptions, which I'm going to enable now. And it's a little CC button. So if you want to see what we're saying out loud, you can see it along the bottom of your screen. You can just go ahead and click on that button and say show subtitle. If you don't want to see it, you can hide the subtitle. But we do like to put that on for folks that might find that beneficial. And then we are recording today's webinar. We will put that up on our library YouTube channel, usually within a week or two. And we will send out that video in a follow-up email to everyone that has registered for the workshop. And we will also include follow-up questions. If there's questions we are unable to answer today or anything that requires a little bit more research, we'll put that in there as well. And then I will also put a copy of the handout for today in the chat so that you will also have that for today as well, which I will do in just a moment. But first, I want to go ahead and introduce Rebecca. Rebecca is a library associate here at the Champaign Public Library, and she may be familiar to some of you who've taken our tech workshops before, as she does teach quite a few of them, as well as assisting me and hosting for these webinars. So, hi, Rebecca. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. I am also doing well. I'm looking forward to learning about PowerPoint today.
Got my hand out.
All right.
All right. Let's go ahead and jump right in. I'm going to share my screen so we can see what we're talking about today. Let me move my little share screen thing here. All right. I hope you're seeing my sort of intro slide there.
Yes, I am. Yep.
Okay, so we're doing Intro to Microsoft PowerPoint Part 1, and Part 2 will be next week. We'll have just kind of introductory stuff today. So we're going to cover some tools, and then next week we'll have some more advanced stuff. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about our agenda for today. So of course, we're going to talk about how to access PowerPoint. The version we're covering in the webinar today is PowerPoint 2016, and that is the same version that is on our library computers here at the Champaign Public Library. So if you're ever in the library and you wanted to use our computers, you can get on and use PowerPoint. We also have Excel, we have Microsoft Word. There's a couple of other pieces of software on there. But I like to mention that too, in case you don't have it at home, but you want to work with it. You're always free to do that here at the library. We're going to talk about terminology and some of the descriptions for those. It'll make more sense once we jump in, but there is some words that pertain to certain things in PowerPoint, which we're going to cover. You may have heard of them before when we talked about Intro to Word and Intro to Excel. Of course, we're going to create a presentation for today because that's what PowerPoint's all about. It's all about creating presentations and slideshows. We're going to talk about how to add slides and content to those slides. I like our little transition there. We're also going to talk about how to modify those slides. There's also something called a slide layout. We're going to be able to adjust that. So that's kind of what your slide looks like. Then we'll talk about how to rearrange the slide order so that you get it the way you want it to go. We'll also talk about how to duplicate and delete slides. That's a really important thing to talk about. We're going to talk about applying a theme. So that would be sort of the design for the look of your slides. We'll also talk about how to play your presentation. So if you're interested in presenting it to a group of people or to your family, friends, stuff like that, we'll talk about how to actually present that PowerPoint presentation. Okay, so before I get started, are there any questions?
No questions so far.
Okay. So there is a way to access PowerPoint 2016 a couple of different ways. The slides that you're seeing currently are how to do it on a Windows 10 computer. So you can use your taskbar down at the bottom of your Windows 10 computer to search for PowerPoint 2016. So you can kind of see on the slide here, we typed in PowerPoint and it popped up with a best match, which was our app that we can click on to open up PowerPoint. You may also have PowerPoint as an application on your desktop. So that is also a way to access it. If you're on an Apple computer, you can do the same thing. You can search using your Spotlight search, or you can get into your applications from the Finder and open up PowerPoint. There's a couple of different ways on there as well. And you can also click the Start menu if you're on a Windows computer. So the Start menu will usually list all of the applications that you have in an alphabetical list. And we just searched for ours under P for PowerPoint, and we clicked it to open the app. And of course, once you open it, I'll demonstrate this in a second, but you have an option to choose a blank presentation or to choose a presentation that has a theme. So themed presentations will already have sort of a design and look to the slides, and a blank presentation gives you the option to completely customize that for yourself. I usually like to start with a blank presentation just to kind of get what I want down on the slides, and then I may change the theme later. Now, it also does change the look of your presentation. So some people do like to do their theme first. It's really up to you and how do you decide you like to work. And, you know, as you work more and more with PowerPoint, you'll figure out what works best for you. But today, what we'll be doing is we're going to be doing a blank presentation. Okay, any questions?
No questions so far.
All right, let me grab some water. All right. So let me go ahead and stop sharing my PowerPoint so we can jump right into the actual PowerPoint environment. Okay, let me go back to the file menu here. Actually, let me see if I can open up PowerPoint. Sorry, I'm going to try to see if we can get into the brand new, like when you open it up for the first time. Okay, let me see if I can share this. Yes, here we go. Okay, can you see where it says PowerPoint on the left side, and then you see all the options there for the themes?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so this is sort of the main look that you're going to encounter when you first open up PowerPoint. And you're going to, again, either select that blank presentation. Oh, where's my mouse? Can you see my mouse?
No.
Okay, that's weird. I can't see it either. I can only see it when I zoom over my, okay. Anyways, I hope that disappears and changes when we select blank presentation. But blank presentation, again, that's where it's completely blank and you get to decide from there how your slides look. And then you'll see all of the other themes that come on PowerPoint. There's tons and tons you can get just from the PowerPoint application, but I believe you can also download from specific sites online if you want something that's outside of what is here already. Can you see my mouse now up at the top?
Yes, I see the hand.
Okay, cool. I don't know what was going on earlier. Maybe it was a Zoom thing. But you can also sort of sort through the different types of themes. So if I were to click on themes, then it would pull up a bunch of themes. And then on the right side, you can see tons of different ideas for things you can do. For instance, maybe you wanted to do something like create, I don't know, cards. Let me go back here. There's probably something easier than that. I think there's here, let's go presentations, and then we can of course see all the different types of presentations in that category. I recommend kind of browsing through there just to see what's out there, because people do tons of different things with PowerPoint, not just like we're doing today. So people might actually do a photo presentation. I know that some people use it as maybe like a newsletter thing. There's a couple of other different options I'm not thinking of off the top of my head, but there's a ton of other things you can do with PowerPoint.
My father used it as for my wedding, where he welcomed everyone to our reception.
Oh, that's
he
nice.
used PowerPoint and put in some pictures and stuff.
Yeah, that's the perfect option for that.
Yes.
Because you can display it all big and then have it like timed, kind of slideshow style.
And it was something he was familiar with. So
perfect. Didn't have to get too complicated. Okay, so let's go ahead and select blank presentation because that's what we're going to start with. All right, so I hope you can see my kind of big blank slide here in the center that says click to add title.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So if you've attended our classes previously, both Word and Excel, you may notice a lot of similarly designed things here. So the main thing up at the top here, where all of our tools and buttons are, that is called our ribbon. So I'm sort of bringing my mouse. I hope you're seeing my cursor kind of circling it. That is our ribbon. So the ribbon is that top area where it's going to have commands that are organized into tabs, icons, and groups. So you may have recognized that from Microsoft Word and Excel. They both have ribbons as well, which are separated into groups. And then inside of those groups are those icons where you can do different things. Okay. So as I said, within the ribbon, there are tabs. So sort of like tabs in maybe like a folder. Maybe you have a folder with a lot of different tabs on it that you can flip to different subjects. We also have the same thing here in PowerPoint. So we have a file tab, home tab, insert.
Rebecca, at this moment, are you moving your mouse over those things?
Yes, sort of.
Because
can you see that?
It looks like the mouse is frozen.
Oh, okay. Let me stop my share and go back into it.
Okay.
It might have been weird when I went back and forth a couple times. Let me go back here. Okay, can you see my mouse
yes,
now?
Now it's moving. Yes, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so our tabs again there, I think, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 tabs besides the file tab. So the file tab is always going to be there. I don't sort of count it as another tab because when you click on file, you're not really doing anything other than going to print it, save it, or open up a new presentation. But our regular tabs that we have, which are sorted into groups and then icons, those would be the home tab, insert, design, transitions, animations, slideshow, review, and view. So again, all of these, if I were to click on them, they're going to display different groups or different icons, which will allow us to do different commands. For instance, we could create a new slide, we could change the design, we can add a transition or an animation. Or if we're in our slideshow tab, of course, we can start our presentation. We can customize how we want it to start or stop or add timings and such. We're going to go over a couple of these tabs in a little bit, but they're definitely a really important part of that ribbon up at the top of your screen. You're going to be flipping through these tabs pretty often if you're using PowerPoint. So like I said before, as you go through those tabs, you're going to see some groups. So if we're in our home tab, we see a couple of groups here. We have a clipboard group, a slides group, font, paragraph, drawing, and editing. And you may notice that in between each group is a sort of a light gray line that will help separate those into different categories. So they kind of get differentiated. If I go to my insert tab, same thing. It's got a bunch of different groups which are sort of separated. And within those groups is going to be these icons. And the icons are those graphical representations of different functions that you're going to be able to do. For instance, in our slides group, we have the option to create a new slide. We can change our layout. We can reset our slide. Or there's another button that says sections, which is another way to organize your slides. And as you'll notice, I hope you're seeing, if I hover over my slide or my icon here, I have an option to see what it's all about. So for instance, I'm hovering my mouse over new slide and it's telling me what it does. So it's going to add a slide to our presentation. And it's also showing us a keyboard shortcut for that. So if I wanted to use a keyboard shortcut to create a new slide, I would use Control M. And of course, I think it will do it if I go over the layout as well. Some of them don't have keyboard shortcuts, but a lot of them will, and they'll show you when you hover. I guess I think that happens more in Word than it does in PowerPoint with the keyboard shortcuts. Especially when I start working with text, it will give me more options for keyboard shortcuts as well. Do we have any questions so far?
No questions so far.
Okay. Let's actually go ahead and talk about the bottom part here now. So right underneath the ribbon is going to be where we're seeing our slides. So we don't have any slides besides the one that was created when we created the PowerPoint, but there is a way to add slides. And we're going to talk about that in a second. But this giant white box here that we're seeing where it says click to add title, that's the first slide that we have in our presentation. And you'll also see off to the left that our slide here is slide number 1, and it's highlighted in orange because we have it selected. So you'll kind of see as we add more slides that they will slot in place right under this number 1 slide. Let me add another slide just so we can see a couple more down there. Okay, so we've got now 4 slides in here, and as I click through them, you're going to notice that they're going to be highlighted in orange, so that indicates to me that that's the slide I have currently displayed as this big slide here in the center. So this pane off to the left here actually has a name. It's called the navigation pane, navigation pane, not plane. So that is going to display all of those slides that you have in your presentation. So we just have 4 right now, but some people have 60, 70, 100 slides. I think some of our webinars have like 50 slides. So once you get up there in numbers, you're going to be able to kind of scroll down. Let me add a few more slides so we have a scroll wheel here. So now we've got 10 slides. So now I can kind of scroll up and down here so I can see where I am in my navigation pane, and I can go in between slides as well. So I use the navigation pane pretty often to sort my slides and to navigate within my PowerPoint presentation. It's kind of a quick shortcut window if you think about it that way. So you'll also notice if I go back to the first slide that it's got a title option here. Usually when you create a PowerPoint, especially a blank presentation, it's going to start you off with a title slide. And then all of your other slides will have a default slide layout. So the slide layout is this pre-arranged layout of these placeholders here. So for instance, I have the option to add a title to the slide, and then I can add text underneath it. These are customizable, so they can be different layouts. You may have a layout that has an option to add pictures or graphs. This one is just the default, but I can always change it. Let me see if we go into, do we cover that now? I think we may cover that later. Yes, we do that later when we talk about modifying slides. But again, just really simply, the layout is the way that your slide is allowing you to enter information. So we have the text or the title up at the top and then the text at the bottom. My first slide has a layout of the title slide, so I can add a title and then a subtitle. Again, yours may look differently depending on the theme that you've chosen. We just have a blank presentation, so it just defaulted to these preset layouts. I hope that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. It does, yes.
Okay, cool. There is also an option, again, to change the design of the slide. If we go to our design tab up here at the top, then we have the option to kind of pick a design. Now there's only a few that are up here in your ribbon, but if you click, there's a small little arrow that's to the right of this window here of my designs that I can use to scroll through them. Or if I click the very bottom arrow that says more, it will pop out a window where I can go and see even more of them. You can even browse for themes online. Some people like to get their templates from websites. Maybe they've got a custom one that they've created that they wanted to download into PowerPoint. They can do that as well. But I can change that from here. If I hover over one as well, it's going to give me sort of a preview of what that will look like when it's applied to my PowerPoint presentation. I should also mention that if you do an entire presentation as a blank presentation and you go to select your design at the end, it may change where your text or your pictures are, or some of the shapes maybe you've added into your presentation. So keep that in mind when you're doing your design, is that you probably would want to go back and just double check and make sure everything looks the way you want it to look, because it may change the positioning of certain things. So let me select one actually here and see what it will look like. Okay, so I've selected a theme. Now you may notice that the font looks slightly different and my title maybe is not completely centered. And my subtitle is off to the bottom left corner as well. So that looks slightly different than what I had it with the blank presentation. So again, you're going to be slightly changed in terms of your positioning. You're also going to change every single slide in the slideshow. So that's something also to keep in mind. You can't just change one, you're going to change the entire slideshow. And it's kind of fun to play around with what they look like as well, because they do have different colorings and fonts. So it's kind of fun to see what your presentation may look like with your selected design. I like to go more simple, so I usually like to keep it like with a white background. This looks kind of similar to our, I think this is ours for our design for our classes. It has that kind of band design at the bottom.
We have custom colors, but
Okay.
that match the library logo colors. But
yes,
similar in layout.
I'm going to keep it like that because it's very familiar for me. Okay. Any questions so far about what I've covered?
No questions so far.
Okay. I usually like to take the questions slide as an opportunity to get a little bit of water. Okay, let me go back up to the slide number 1. Of course, that's our title slide. Let me go back to our home tab up here. I added a lot of new slides in here, but I didn't really show how to do that. So let's cover how to add a new slide into your layout or into your presentation. So if you're on your home slide, you're going to go into the slides group here. I hope you can see where I'm circling it with my mouse.
Yes.
Okay, cool. I'm kind of paranoid about the mouse showing up now.
Right now I can see it, and
cool.
It's following what you're doing.
Good. Okay, so in our slides group, we have that option there to create a new slide. Now I can either click the icon there, or I can click where it says new slide, where there's that little arrow pointing down. If I click that there where it says new slide, it's going to allow me to pick the layout that I want. So that's kind of useful. I could go in here and maybe pick a layout that's different than the one that will be as default if I were to just click the icon. So if I were to just click the icon, let's do that. So it's just going to create a new slide that has the default for the new slide. But if I were to click on the other one there, I can decide what my layout is instead. So I'm going to do the to content because maybe I want to have a picture on one side and then maybe like a bullet point list on the other side. I do that pretty often when we do our webinars. So I'm going to keep it like that because I like that layout. But again, there's 2 options. If I were to just click the icon, it just does the default. If I were to click new slide, I get to decide what my layout is. And when you create a new slide, it's going to create the slide right underneath the slide you currently have selected. So keep that in mind. If you're maybe down here at the bottom of your presentation and you're creating a new slide, it's going to go down there at the bottom. If I wanted to create one right after my first one, I of course would just do it right underneath by selecting the first slide and then hitting new slide. I can also, let's see, do I talk about moving slides right now? Later. Okay. We're going to talk about how to move slides as well in case you're interested in rearranging some of your presentation. I do that very often. But first, we're going to talk about how to add or insert text. So what I can do is I can, of course, either click on one of these boxes where it says click to add title or click to add text. So maybe I can create a bullet point list, or I can just start typing in here. So I could just type in, this is my PowerPoint presentation. Presentation, if I could spell. What is today's date, the 22nd?
Yes.
Okay.
And PowerPoint will help you if you don't know how to spell. It'll underline things if they're spelled incorrectly.
Yes, and I'm glad for that because I cannot spell sometimes.
Me either.
So again, you can click on those pre-made boxes to add the text. Or what I can do is I can go into the Insert tab and I can go over here to the text group and click on text box. So that will let me add the text box wherever I want to, instead of just those sort of prearranged layouts that PowerPoint already has. So if I click text box, let's see what it does. Okay, so it's just giving me a cursor. And once I click down where I want the text box to go, it will show up. So let's click down. And then I could start typing. So you'll notice there's kind of a box here that I can stretch and move with these bounding box tools, which are these little white dots on the corners here. So maybe I wanted to add maybe a bullet point list here. I could click in the box. Is it going to let me? Okay, it still thinks I'm moving it around. That was weird. Why didn't it let me do that? Let me try that again.
I think you have to insert some text first and then.
Oh, okay, and then move my bounding box. Okay. So let's do, what should my presentation be about? How about library programming? How about that? Let me change my text because we have a lot of library programming coming up this year. So let's add a text box. Okay, let's add a text box. So I'm going to go to Insert and I'm going to click Text Box. And I want to add what we're doing at the library this year in terms of programming. So I'm going to add my bullet points up here in my paragraph group on my Home tab because I want to make it a bullet point list. And of course, we have tech workshops. We also have crafty adults. We have our business programming. What is that called? Is that launch at the library?
And then start and grow your business.
Start and grow your business.
And then get that job.
Yes, I was just going to say, get that job. And there's also our book clubs.
And writer's workshop.
And we're hoping to have a lot more coming up now that we're going to in programming soon. So we'll add to that list later. But these are just a smattering of things we have coming up. And as I was doing before, I was kind of stretching those boxes. And as you move your box, you'll notice the text will kind of shape around the size. So this is useful if you have a large text box that you want to kind of move to another area to make room for something, or you want to expand it so that the text is easier to read. I recommend playing around with those bounding boxes because that's going to change the way your text looks. I do that very, very often when we're doing our webinars because we try to fit a lot of text on there, but we want to make it legible. So we kind of move these text boxes bounding so that it fits to where we want it to be. You'll probably notice that on the handout that maybe we smush some text over on the side and then we have a big picture to demonstrate what we're talking about for that slide. Okay, so that's text boxes. You can also insert things like pictures. So I was saying earlier that we often use pictures in our slides when we're doing our tech workshops. So let me see if we can insert here. If we go to the Insert tab and we click on Pictures, then we can choose from our pictures that we have saved onto our computer. So this would be a good plan, I would say, would be to have some pictures ready to insert If you're not sure what you want to insert yet, there is a way to insert online pictures. So if you notice, there's a button right next to pictures that says online pictures. So that would be where it would allow us to go and search the internet and then insert that image from the internet. So maybe we wanted to insert a lot. I wonder if we search Champaign Public Library, if it would have a picture. I bet it would. So this is a Bing image search that it's doing. So if I click there, oh, it looks like we do have some stuff here. Cool. So you could really search anything. I could search cats. Of course, we have a million cat photos that show up because it is the internet after all. But let me go back to Champaign Public Library because I do kind of want to put in one since we're talking about programming. So let's see what's out there. Oh, this is a nice one at the cafe. There's an Urbana one there and the U of I.
And Douglas Branch.
Yes, it's pulling from a lot of different images here. Let's see, I'm trying to find a good one that encapsulates programming. Oh, maybe this one here. This looks like from maybe an author event. I wonder if any of us is in it. Interesting. All right, so I just go again to that insert tab, and then once you select the picture, it pops it into the slide. And then of course I could move it using my mouse. As long as I have a cursor there that looks like that one with the arrows pointing in all directions, that's going to let me click and drag it to where I want it to go. If I was on the edges or on one of these bounding box white circles, that will allow me to change the size and what's that word I was trying to think of? The proportion? No, that's not the right word. The scale, I can't think of the word. It'll come to me. But I usually use the corners because if I don't, it may distort the picture, especially if I use the top or side. See, if I just use the top one, it will distort the picture.
Were you looking for the word ratio or?
Ratio is a good word. Yeah, I think ratio.
Or I mean, scale works too. It's just, it's the scale, the proportions of, you know, keeping it so that it doesn't look that stretched.
Yes. And that's important too when you're inserting something to kind of make sure that people can read it and understand it, especially in a presentation. It's very visual, right? So you want to make sure that people understand what you're presenting. If I had a picture that looked like that, that wouldn't be very good looking. I would want to make sure those proportions looked correct. Now I think I've probably messed them up, so let me go back. What I'm doing now is I'm going up at the top right, or I'm sorry, top left corner, and I'm hitting the undo button. And that gets me back to that correct size, where then I can go and use the corners to resize that and move it where I want it to go. Okay. So I've got my picture in there. Let me actually go ahead and we're going to save the presentation too, because I think it's really important to know how to save. So let's go to File. We're going to hit Save As because I want to rename my presentation. Let's go ahead and just save it to the desktop. So I'm going to name this presentation Library Programming. And then I'm going to hit Save. Okay, so now I've got my PowerPoint saved. And anytime I make a change that I want to keep and I don't want to lose, I'll make sure to go up here in the left-hand corner and hit that small little save button. It sort of looks like a floppy disk. If you're familiar with old school computer things, a floppy disk is kind of the universal symbol that Excel, PowerPoint, Word, they all use that icon for saving. Okay. So again, if I wanted to undo something, I have my undo button, I have a redo button, and then some other PowerPoint tools here, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Any questions so far about inserting text or inserting images?
No questions so far.
Okay, let me grab some water. Okay, so we talked about inserting new slides and we talked about layouts a little bit. So let's talk about those more because there is a way that you can change those after you've already created new slides or the layout has already been determined. So if we go to our Home tab up at the top and we click back where it says Layout in the Slides group, it will again let us change that layout. So if I wanted to switch it back to a title slide, or I wanted to do a title and content comparison, you can also just do a blank slide. Sometimes I will do a blank slide because I want to create my own layout. In that case, if it's a blank slide, it won't have any default in terms of where text is positioned. So that's a good time to kind of move stuff around, make it the way you want it to look without it being like strictly in certain spots. So we do the blank slide pretty often when we do our tech workshops, just because we customize them. We get pretty detailed. So I like to make sure it's not sort of stuck in one spot, and I can make sure to move it around and customize it to the way I want it to be, especially with text and images. It just gives you more freedom, I feel, if you use a blank. But of course, you know, whatever works for you. Some people like to have it already set up and they don't have to worry about moving stuff around too much. I'm very detailed in terms of how I want things to be, so I like to make it blank. But you can change that at any time as well. So I could go back to being to content and it will switch my stuff back, but then I'll have to move it again because I made that custom. So let me switch that. Okay, let me make that look a little better. All right. There is also a way to, what was I talking about? Rearrange the slides. We talked about when we added slides, how to move, how we were going to move them later. Because when we insert the slide, it inserts it right underneath the one you have selected. But I know oftentimes we move things around because maybe we change the order of our presentation. Maybe I have this going at the end of our presentation instead of the beginning. So to move them, what you're going to do over here in the navigation pane is you're going to click and hold on your slide that you want to move, and then you're going to just drag it into position. So it will sort of make room in the navigation pane for your slide so that you can kind of get an idea of where it's going to go. So maybe I wanted it between slide 7 and slide 8. And if I let go, it's going to put my slide there, and it's also going to give it a new number. So instead of it being slide number 2, it's now slide number 7. It will also reorder the other slides in that number position. So what was previously slide 7 was now going to be slide 6 because I have a new slide 7. So I do this very often in terms of moving stuff around. It helps to know how to do it from the navigation pane. There is a way to do it in a different view, but the navigation pane for me is kind of easy if you don't have a lot of slides. We're going to talk about the different views. I know some people have like a very high number of slides in their PowerPoint as well, and sometimes it may not be as easy to move those around just on the navigation pane. We're going to talk about how to move those around in a different way when we talk about the different views for your PowerPoint presentation. Okay, there is also a way to duplicate slides. So we often use the duplicate tool when we are creating our webinar presentations, because duplicating a slide sort of kind of lets you go off of the design you had previously, and it doesn't give you a lot of extra work. So for instance, maybe I wanted to create another slide that looked just like this, but I wanted to add in new information. It's easier for me to create a duplicate and then just fill in the new information rather than creating a brand new slide and doing it from scratch. So it's kind of like a template almost for you to move on to maybe your next subject in your presentation, or you had just a follow-up slide that had extra information. So let's do that. To duplicate a slide, what I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click on the slide that I want to duplicate from the navigation pane. I almost called it a plane again. So I'm going to right-click on it, and then I'm going to get a menu that comes up. So here I can also do a new slide from this as well, but right under new slide, I see where it says duplicate slide. If I click on that, that's going to put that duplicate slide right underneath the slide I currently have selected. So now you'll see I have a duplicate slide as slide number 4. And then I could go in here and maybe I wanted to do library programming in 2023. And then I could write some new information here. Maybe I had some author visits. Maybe we had our food truck rally going finally, because I love that program. And some other programs maybe we had coming up. And I could change some of this next year. And then, yeah, I use that kind of as a way to, you know, create less work for myself. It's already got a lot of the information that I'm going to use anyways, and that way I don't have to spend the time creating it from scratch. Do you find that with how you do duplicating as well, Susan?
Absolutely. I also do that a lot if I go back to something and see that I've put way too much information on one slide, which I have been known to do quite often. And then I will duplicate and pare it down so it's a little bit more simple on slide 1 and slide 2. So I often find that I pack one slide with too much stuff and then end up splitting it.
Yeah, that's a good way to make your slides more simple. That way you can have your previous one, but it's got the same exact look. It's just got the extra information on it.
Yeah, and especially with tutorials like we do with these, where if it's step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you know, if all steps are on one slide, it takes up a lot of room. Maybe I break it into step 1 through 3 and then step 4 through 6.
Yeah,
on the second slide.
Yeah, I like that too, because it keeps it more simple. For me, I like to keep things simple. You may have a different way that you work, but I think for me, the simpler the better in terms of your slideshow, because you want to get that information across. You don't want to have too much text to read, at least for me.
Yeah, and there are books out there on PowerPoint and creating the ultimate PowerPoint slide presentation of how much text to
keep people
engaged, talking to whatever. There are many different, there's probably honors theses out there from people who have spent the time to like see how it gets taken in by your audience or people. But just in general, it's a good idea not to overwhelm with too much per slide.
Agreed. Yeah, I think there's definitely a balance that you have to strike in terms of your visuals and your text, because I mean the point of your presentation is that it's sort of a support for you talking. And maybe not, maybe you're doing a photo presentation, so there is a balance for the visuals and the text, at least in my experience.
Yeah, it does depend on the context and the use of the program.
Yeah, and there's really no right way to do it, but there are ways that work better than certain ways. Okay. We're also going to talk about how to delete slides. So let's talk about that now. Let's delete some of these down here because we don't need 16 slides. So how do I delete a slide? What I'm going to do again is I'm going to select the slide that I'm going to want to delete, and I'm going to right click and hit delete slide. I would be also pretty careful when you're clicking around in this menu too, because you can easily click delete instead of duplicate. I've done that a couple of times. Now, the good thing about PowerPoint is you can always undo that. So take advantage of your undo button if you accidentally delete something. But I kind of wish they didn't have these buttons so close to each other, to be honest.
Yeah, that's why I just use the keyboard shortcut myself when I'm deleting.
Yeah, you can highlight your slide and then just hit the delete button on your keyboard. I think it may work with backspace as well. Yes, it does. So I'm just hitting delete and I'm hitting backspace to delete as well, instead of, you know, accidentally hitting it if I were in this right click menu. But of course I could always do it from there as well. Right click, hit delete. And of course your slides are going to renumber themselves. It's easier for me to kind of lose track of where I am because they don't have any content. But once you have content, you'll notice if you've accidentally deleted something. I mean, hopefully, maybe you did it accidentally and you didn't notice, but that's why it's important to review your PowerPoint presentation pretty often if you're deleting stuff. Okay, any questions so far?
No questions that I see in the chat. And again, if
Okay.
you want to ask a question out loud, please raise your hand and we'll be happy to unmute you.
Yeah, as always.
Mhm.
Okay, let's go on to the design tab. We're going to make our, since we've added some content, maybe we'll switch our design because we want to see what else it looks like. Let me delete some of these extra slides here again. Let me go to our design tab and I'm going to change my theme again. Ooh, let's see. I want to see if what it looks like when I'm on my slide here. And you'll see as I'm moving through these different designs that it is changing my location of my text. So especially with this one, it kind of smushes my text. Now I can change that, of course, but just keep that in mind. If you're all done and you're like, okay, I want this design, you're not completely done because you'll want to go back and check and make sure it's still legible. I like this one with the fancy text here. And let me move my picture a little bit. I'm going to delete this text out the back. I like that one. I like the text on this one and it's simple. It's got a nice look to it. So I'm going to keep that one. And again, once you do change your theme, it's going to change all of them. So you'll want to go and make sure your pictures are where they want to be and your text is where you want it to be. Because again, it will smush some of the stuff just to make the theme fit. Because if I were to go to a different one, ooh, that one's a good example. The text goes over the text that I had inserted it earlier. So if I move some of this around, ooh, that's a weird one. It's like centered in there. Let me switch the box around. So I can get really into the nitty-gritty with some of this customizing. There we go. That works. See, this one is even kind of opposite now. That, let me move that around. So yeah, it's all about kind of playing around, moving these boxes, changing the bounding, just to see how your look and feel changes as you move stuff around. Okay. That's the theme. Let's talk about how to play a PowerPoint presentation, because that's usually what you'll want to do when you're done. Let me add a title actually, because I think we're going to need a title for our presentation. Okay. Let me change that a little bit. I'll kind of make it into a little subtitle. And maybe if I go back to my home tab, also I have the option to change the font. So even if you change the theme, you can always go back in and customize things, especially with the font color, the font size, whether you want it italicized, bolded. Let's change this. Maybe I want this slightly larger. Let me change the title too. I can go down here to my drop-down menu and change my size. That's good. Let me change my font too. Maybe I want it to be, that looks good. And maybe I want it to be actually black instead of gray. So that's another thing to keep in mind too when you're doing your theme, is it's not totally beholden to that theme. You can always go back and customize here and there when it comes to your text. I think you may be able to change some of the coloring as well, but I think that may be more advanced. Maybe not. I think that
you can change the color of the backdrop or the background and things like that within the theme.
Oh, you're right. Yes.
Where it says customize over on the, in that other group that says customize off on the right. Oh, go back to design. Off on the right-hand side where it says customize.
Oh, I see it. It was blocked
those
by
are
my
places,
video.
yeah. So those are places where you can kind of change the background and you can change like pick your own colors for the, so instead of having kind of a purplish blue, you could have it be yellow or whatever you wanted.
Yeah, over here where it says themes, that's where I'm selecting my theme, but there's also this variants group. which looks like it also changes some of the coloring.
Yes, and that one has does have specific hues of colors that go well together and stuff.
Wow, yeah, there's a lot of different styles you can go with. So yeah, it's kind of endlessly customizable, which is kind of nice because then you can stand out against just the regular default that's out there. Okay, so let's go back to our home tab. And there's a couple of different views as well that I wanted to show in terms of your slides, because we talked about when we were moving slides, but I want to cover that again. So right down here on the bottom right-hand corner, we have some of the things that we've maybe seen before in Microsoft Word and Excel. So we have a zoom bar here, a slider bar, which will help us zoom in or out on our slide. So it's not changing the size of the slide in terms of like when you go to print it, but it will change the view. So maybe you wanted to get in and see some more detail on your slide. You could use that slider bar, or you could zoom out if you wanted to see some of the space around it. Maybe you were workshopping something, but usually it's going to be defaulted to 100%. Actually, let me go down. 69% looks like it's defaulted to us. So the way I made it show the whole slide is there at the very, very bottom right corner there, you'll see this little square with arrows. It may be very hard to see on your end, but if I hover over it, it says fit slide to current window.
Yep, we can see it.
Okay.
Or at least I can see it.
So if I were to click on that, that will sort of zoom my slide so that I can see the entire slide. I use that pretty often if I've got something zoomed in and I just click that, then I can get back to my slide view as a default. Then I also have these other tools here, sort of to the left-hand side of my zoom bar. So I have a normal view, which is the view I'm currently on, where it's showing the navigation pane and it's showing the slide there that I have selected. If I click on slide sorter view, this is the one that I was talking about earlier. Let me zoom out just a little bit as well. So this is really useful if you have a lot of different slides that you maybe are wanting to rearrange. I can click and drag them into the place where I want them to go. So say you had like 50 slides here and you wanted to just see them all in one spot and you wanted to be able to rearrange. You can do that from slide sorter view. Slide sorter view is also helpful for transitions and animations, which we're going to talk about next week. So this will make more sense when we start to add animations in, because you're going to be able to see which animations or transitions are applied to the slides. So it's kind of a useful kind of step back from your presentation to kind of get the lay of the land. If I go into reader view, I think that's sort of just a view that's going to show me just the slide itself without doing the presentation. And it's not going to show any of my tools or my navigation pane. It's just going to show me those slides. I don't use reader view too often. I pretty much just use normal view or slide sorter view. You'll also notice there is a slideshow button here as well. So if I wanted to jump right into my slideshow, I could click on that slideshow button. And then now I'm in my slideshow view. So that's a quick way to jump into your presentation. Maybe you've plugged into your computer into your projector and you're ready to go. You can click on that slideshow button and it will start your presentation for you. I think it may start at the one you have currently selected though. Let me test it. Yes. Okay, so that would start your presentation on the slide that you have selected currently. So most people will want to start their presentation at that first slide. Maybe you have spoilers in your presentation or you don't want to cover certain things right away. There is a way to start it from the beginning. So let's go to our slideshow tab because that's going to have some more tools about how we start our show. So if I go into my slideshow tab, it's hard to say, slideshow tab. You have some options here up at the top here in our start slideshow group. So I can start my slideshow from the beginning. So that would start with that very first slide, usually your title slide. I can start it from the current slide, which would be the slide I have selected currently. And then I have a couple of more options here. I have a present online, custom slideshow. These are some more advanced tools. I don't use these very often when I just do a regular slideshow. But if you're wanting to get more advanced with certain slides that you want people to see or not see, you can use that custom slideshow. There's also a way to change the timings on your slides. So maybe you have slides that you only want up for 10 seconds or 1 minute or 5 minutes, and they'll automatically go to the next slide. That's a way to do that if you use your timings. There's also presenter view. I don't know, I don't want to crash this if I click presenter view. But presenter view is really useful because it shows the full screen slide to the people you're presenting to, but on your view, it's going to show you a speaker view. So maybe you have a podium that you're standing at and you have your computer there, right? And you've got your slideshow playing to everybody else. All they're going to see is the slide. But on your side, where you're seeing your slideshow on your computer or your tablet or whatever you're working with, your view is going to show not only the slide that you're seeing, but it's also going to show the slide coming up. It also may have a timer on there and notes. So you can also add notes to your slides. We're going to talk about that as well. But presenter view is kind of useful. I like to use it if I needed to have my presentation timed. It helps me keep track of where I am. And it also helps me prepare for what's coming up. So I'm not surprised by the next slide and I'm maybe thrown off by what's coming up. Sometimes we use that here at the library. Not too often, but it's a really useful tool if you're presenting a lot and you want those extra tools to show up for you. Since I talked about notes, why don't I cover that really quick as well? Down here at the bottom where we saw our views earlier, we have the option to show our notes. So if I were to click on that, let me just adjust that a little bit here. I'm just clicking and dragging this divider line to show more of my notes section here. So your notes may be something that you want to make sure you mention, but you don't want to have on your slide. I have notes every once in a while on mine, just because I don't want to put so much information on the slide, but I want to make sure I'm aware and I want to talk about what's in the notes section. So again, with presenter view, it may show those notes when you're presenting using presenter view. It's sort of kind of like having note cards. So you don't have that information displayed to the public, but you're covering those with your note cards. I hope that makes sense. Do we have any questions?
No questions so far.
Okay. I think that pretty much covers everything for today. Of course, we're going to go into some more advanced topics coming up next week. But let me stop my share and I'll go back to our PowerPoint that we have for the class. Let me find it here. Okay. So let me get to the end of our PowerPoint here where we have our additional resources. Because you may want to explore PowerPoint on your own time, and we have some resources that will help you maybe learn some additional things here. So we usually talk about GCF Learn Free when it comes to things like PowerPoint, because they're really good at doing tutorials and intro topics. So they have one on PowerPoint as well. They are really good at their visuals and they have good step-by-step guides. So we often recommend GCF Learn Free. They have different topics as well for things like the internet, for Windows PCs. There's a ton of stuff on that site I recommend. There's also Microsoft Office online training. So I think that's, would that be for PowerPoint online or is it just?
It's for PowerPoint, but it's available online.
Okay. So I think they have their own sort of thing that you can take to learn more about how to use PowerPoint.
Yes.
LinkedIn is also great. So if you've ever heard of LinkedIn Learning, we have access to that. And you'll have access to that too if you have your Champaign Public Library card. You'll just visit champaign.org/LinkedIn Learning, and there's a ton of different classes you can take on there, including stuff on PowerPoint. I've taken classes on LinkedIn about Apple computers, about Windows computers. They have classes you can take about Photoshop, job training, customer service training, tons of stuff. And of course, there's always books too. We have tons of books here. There's some teach yourself visually books, which I like a lot. I'm a very visual learner, so I like to have those visual cues. It's hard for me to just get a step-by-step without seeing how to do it. And that's why I like our handouts too, because we include those visuals. But yeah, you can always look in the nonfiction stacks and you should find some books about PowerPoint. We also have Word, Excel. There's books about iPads, Android phones, iPhones, lots of different software and hardware stuff out there. And next week, of course, we'll have part 2 for PowerPoint. And then exciting news is we're going back to in-person in April. Our first class will be virtual, so we'll be in the webinar environment for the April the 5th. But after that, we are in person. So if you're interested in doing in person, you'll also still want to sign up for those. So you can do that at champaign.org/events. And then you'll just click on the one you want to sign up for, put in your information, and then you're good to go. Now, you don't have to sign up for those. We do encourage it though, because we do have a limit on the number of people that we have for now. We don't know how long that will continue for, but for now, just to keep our numbers not so high. Am I missing anything with the in-person, Susan?
No, that's it. Yeah, we do have registration. So champaign.org/events, and then click where it says sign up on each of the workshops you want to take.
Yeah, so that's exciting. We haven't been in person since before we shut down. So that's exciting. So we have intro to iPhones and iPads, Android phones, and one of the most fun classes I think we put on, taking pictures with a smartphone or tablet. So we're going to help you learn how to use the camera on your device. I'll be teaching the intro to iPhones and iPads because I'm an Apple person and I love my iPhone and I love my iPad. But even if you don't have an iPad or an iPhone, that's okay. You can still attend. A lot of people come because they're interested in maybe getting one, or they just got gifted one. So those are pretty fun classes to take just to get a kind of intro. And then Susan, I believe you're teaching the Android phones. And of course, again, you don't have to have an Android phone to attend. Some people like to just watch.
Yeah, I believe Solemn will actually be teaching that one, but I'll be there as well. So
cool. You'll see all of our smiling faces.
Yes.
And then this is just the upcoming live webinar for the intro to Google Docs, Sheets and Slides coming up on the 5th of April. That would be our webinar for the April workshops. We also have an exciting VR program. So it's called Travel with Virtual Reality. And that will be with Eric Johnson, who's the director of the Starkville Planetarium over at Parkland. So we have these fancy new VR headsets that we're interested in getting out there to the public so you guys can explore the galaxy. Yes. So that will be on Monday, April 11th at 6:30. We're hoping to have more VR programming in the future, but this is sort of our kickoff for the virtual reality. It will be a lot of fun. If you're interested, you can sign up online as well, champaign.org/events. And that, of course, will be in person as well.
Yeah, and you don't have to have prior experience with VR. Well,
yes, it's very fun. I enjoy VR.
It's easy to jump into it.
Yes. And as always, we have book a librarian consultation appointments open. So those would be for anybody who's interested in working one-on-one with a staff member to help answer a question that you have. A lot of people will take appointments for if they maybe wanted to learn a little bit more about PowerPoint or Excel. We even have helped people learn about our ebook apps on, like on Libby or Hoopla. You may have heard of those before. Pretty much any question that you have and you want to get one-on-one help with, you can fill out that form, champaign.org/book-a-librarian, and then someone will be in contact to set up the appointment. And you can always email us to or we have live chat on our website, or you can call us and you'll hear our lovely voices over the phone. And YouTube is a really great resource for us. We have all of our previous webinars up on our YouTube channel. So if you've missed a class in the past or want to take something again, go check our YouTube channel and you can see what's up there. It's not just our tech webinars either. We have, I think, our Get That Job stuff up there, some of our business webinars, writers workshops, crafty adults. There's tons of stuff up there. So go check out our YouTube channel. And it's nice too that you can kind of watch at your own pace. So if you need to pause the video, do the exercise and then come back, it's really nice that you can do that on YouTube. I know with webinars, we kind of just chug along, but with YouTube, it's nice you can slow down, do it at your own pace. We also have monthly messages that go out. So if you're interested in learning about upcoming events and programs when it comes to tech, you can sign up on our website. Do you think I should show that on our site?
I mean, you can go to champaign.org/tech-workshops and find the sign up. It's just on the left-hand side there.
I'll also put that in our email that will go out as well. So that'll inform you of our upcoming workshops and you can sign up right from that monthly message. And then here's my info. If you have any questions, you can always reach out and ask. You can call my phone or email me. I'm pretty quick about getting back to people with their questions. And you don't have to just ask me about tech questions either. Usually anybody on our staff is pretty well versed in a lot of these. But of course, if you wanted one-on-one help from me or from Susan, we're always available for that as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We try to be pretty well-rounded here. I think that's the last slide I had.
All right. Let's go ahead and I'll remove the spotlight there. And
okay.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Rebecca. That was very great. It was a nice introduction to PowerPoint.
Yeah.
And
there's tons of stuff you can do with it.
And the different uses of PowerPoint where, different kind of, presentations or slideshows or, whatever you might end up using it for. So, all right. Well, thank you, everyone. Again, come join us next week for PowerPoint Part 2. And if you happen to miss today's workshop, we're going to send the link out and you can always watch the video from today before coming next week.
Yes.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.